What are we talking about today?
We are talking about getting grounded using garter stitch.
Hey, that's the first stitch I learned.
That's right. In fact, that is the first stitch pretty much everyone learns because it is a foundational part of knitting. And that's why I choose to correspond it with grounding, getting grounded.
I thought it was
And
special.
it is special. And so are you, Jim. So don't worry. We're going to dive into it in this episode of Knit a Spell. Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm magical maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
And the craft.
I know what garter stitch is
Well, you
because
tell
I've
me.
done it. Garter stitch isn't it all knits and no pearls or something?
That's it. Jim.
Ding, ding, ding,
Ding,
ding.
ding, ding. Winner. He just won the garter game. You didn't even know we were playing the garter game.
There's a garter game. Oh,
There is
shoot.
now. For a limited time, get the garter game. Available at knitaspell.com, maybe. I don't know. I actually have visual aids. So if you're
Oh,
not watching,
yeah.
this is the time to do it. This is a good season to do it.
That's really
Yes.
pretty, those colors. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Is
So
that a
this is
swatch?
This is a swatch, and I also use it as like a coaster because everything that's a swatch becomes a coaster. You can see, just like Jim said, it is knit every stitch, every row. So all you're doing is just knitting, 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 and this is the fabric that comes out of it. So knitting itself, garter stitch, is not necessarily a stitch. It's the fabric that comes out of doing the knit stitch over and over again. So it's not actually a stitch, it's more of a fabric. Garter fabric is probably what we should be calling it, but that's where we're at.
It's interesting to think about what you're knitting ends up being fabric, because I don't usually hear knitters or crocheters talk about it as fabric. They talk about it as my knitting or the scarf or the blanket. But
Yeah.
I guess technically, if I'm at the store, it says men's knitwear. I guess that is
Yeah.
knitted, isn't it? So
It's
it is
knitted.
fabric.
Yes, indeed. It is the craft that allows you to make the fabric into the shape that you want it to as you're constructing the whole thing. Instead of woven fabric where you would cut a pattern out of it and then sew it all together, you're just
Right.
doing it all at once. It's very
That's
cool like
cool.
that.
Why is it called Garter? Was there like General Garter that won the Civil War or something, or some
Yes, learned it from
conqueror?
Sacagawea, you know,
Oh, sock.
Sacagawea.
Sockage.
Yeah.
It's
I'm here all
terrible.
week, guys.
Her sister, Scarfajuia.
They
Yeah.
had a unbreakable bond.
General John Garter went in and destroyed the village and stole the knitting.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Absorbed all the information and then discovered it for the first time himself without any help. Imagine that. Classic move.
This is a joke, not really where it's named from.
No, no, no,
So
no.
where is
Yes.
it really, where does it really come from?
Well, after doing some research, because this is one of those things where I never thought about where did it come from? It's just a thing that's in the vocabulary that I never thought about, but why though? And so I found that garter stitch is way older than stockinette stitch. This one that is more flat with like the traditional V shapes.
Oh,
And
okay. Is stockinette made when you knit and purl?
that's right. Yes. So you knit
Ah,
one row and then you purl the next row and you keep doing those back and forth. If you're knitting
got it.
flat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And so garter is older than stockinette stitch, going back to the 1300s.
Jeez.
Woo. It was originally referred to a band of fabric that is tied around the leg to keep stockings up. Oh, remember garters?
Oh,
Again,
right.
I never
Garter.
put that together. Like, oh, they were literal garters. Elastic is a modern invention, as are tights and pantyhose, and even the most cleverly knitted socks can sometimes have the sag. And so, having this elastic from the garter knit stitch was way more popular, and that's what was used.
I see. Yeah, the garter stitch is kind of stretchy. Like if you took your stockinette and tried to pull it versus the garter, yeah, that's so
Yep.
stretchy that way.
So the garter, this is the garter being stretched. Now, granted, this one is in the round, so it's a little different, but it's way different of a stretch profile.
That's really interesting.
And the earliest written use that I was able to find of garter stitch came from the 1840s book of knitting, netting, and crochet patterns by Scottish knitting and businesswoman Jane Goggin. Goggin's book was some of the earliest commercial knitting books and crochet books that were out there, so they were very successful. It's called The Lady's Assistant, and it racked up 22 editions, which is pretty freaking cool. It was the very first knitted written instruction commercially available for the garter stitch.
The
Da-da-da.
lady's assistant. Well,
That's
no
right.
wonder this is something that is not so popular amongst men.
Nailed it. Knowing that a little bit more about the garter stitch / fabric, we can talk about what some attributes, like physical attributes of the fabric. As we were talking about, it's the first stitch you learn when you're knitting. When it comes to something that is actually maybe one of the most utilitarian stitches, garter stitch, you can really do anything with it because it's the same. Well, if you do it all in one color, it's reversible and will look the same on the front and the back. Now, I did this one striped, so you can actually see there is a difference in my back of my fabric, but this could be like the featured side if you liked that style more than this one. There's really
I
no
see.
wrong side. So that makes it really interesting in terms of like, what kind of magical uses could it be for, knowing that it's reversible?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So not only is it reversible, doesn't it
Mhm.
stretch the same one direction and the other?
Yeah, so it's like a four-way stretch. So you can stretch this way, you can stretch that way. Unlike stockinette, which if you pull the length of it, it's very limited stretch. And then the width, there's more stretch. So that's more of a quote, two-way stretch. Ooh, look at all these technical stretch terminology we're getting into, Jim.
Well, this shows how your education as a fashion designer and an expert in this is really cool because these are things that I doubt that regular people would know, even if you're a knitter. Like you
Totally.
didn't know the
No,
history.
that's right. The last thing about garter stitch, which always sticks in my head, is it does use more yarn than like stockinette stitch. So that is something to keep in mind that if you're like looking at a pattern and you're thinking, wow, this is calling for way too much yarn, in my opinion, it's because it's eating it up just like crochet. It just uses more yarn.
I guess it needs that in order to have that stretchy quality.
That's a good point. We, of course, cannot mention garter stitch without me bringing up the legendary Elizabeth Zimmerman, which I know is probably meaningless to you, Jim. Elizabeth Zimmerman, aka EZ, was born in a British born, and she, in modern time, really created garter stitch being cool and had at least one book where she wrote all about garter stitch. Knit one, knit all, because what? It's all garter stitch. So you're knitting one stitch and you're knitting them all.
That
Oh, so clever,
is
easy.
such a funny title. Yeah, that's awesome.
Knitters really corner the market on having good wordplay, I think. She made this book. One pattern in particular called the Baby Surprise Jacket is all knitted in garter stitch, all knit in one piece. And Jim, I wish I could show you. There's videos online we could probably watch. After you knit it, it looks like this warped piece of fabric. And then just by folding basically it in half, it becomes this jacket where you just seam under the arms and it's the whole thing. It's done. And it on Ravelry, it's so popular. One of maybe the most popular patterns, over 30,000 finished projects. And those are just the ones logged in on Ravelry. I'm sure there's more just out in the wild for people who don't do the online thing.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So this jacket is probably really comfy. It's probably stretchy and warm. That would be a great thing to do in like a chenille or something like that.
Because they're really good for stripes, having a yarn that either is self-striping or is variegated. It's a great pattern for once to use a loud yarn against because it can feature it and it can hold up. It was so popular that then they extended it out to like, oh, the child surprise jacket, the adult surprise jacket. So surprise, you can make it all for every size and age at this point. So there you go.
I'm looking at it online. They're actually really cute.
They're
You could
so
put
cute.
buttons in the front.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a scalloped edge. You can put a hood on it.
It's almost like
Wow.
because garter stitch is so foundational, it is just ripe for having little add-ons as you get to know more with your knitting, or you're more adventurous, or you just have made 15 of them and you're like, I need something else here to keep me going. It's a really inspiring jacket, especially since there's so many people who have done it. You can just go through those finished projects and see like, oh, I didn't think about doing this. Oh, I didn't think about doing that.
Yeah.
And like you said, just adding a button or changing a button can really give it a whole different feel. It's very fun.
I love it. I want one for myself.
Well, all right, Jim, I'll know what I'm knitting for you maybe for your birthday. We'll say next year because
That's right, because my birthday is in 2 days. So I don't think you can knit an adult-sized surprise jacket in 2 days.
I could, Jim,
Yeah.
but but I have other things to do, like sleep and eat and work occasionally.
I
So,
believe in you.
oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'm just going to clear the schedule and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm going to live stream it on YouTube, see how
That's
it
right.
goes
That's right.
24/7 for 2 days.
Jim is the baby, and that's my surprise. Well, I have a lot of ideas on how this fabric can be magical and some magical correspondences. So if we take a break, when we come back, let's talk about all the magical relationships we can imagine with garter stitch.
Ooh, I can't wait. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, fellow knitters. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a local yarn store as a source for making knitting friends. This is exactly the reason why last year I launched my online knitting community. I offer 2 different access levels. Join my free access level to stay up to date on news and join in on any of my knit along events. Or dive into an even more magical experience by joining my member access level for $10 a month. There you'll gain access to additional benefits like priority knitting help, inspiration on how to make your knitting more magical, a goodie basket of rotating freebies and exclusive coupons, and a new monthly co-knitting session meetup where we meet together and knit online. And don't worry, there will be a replay to follow if you can't make it live. For a limited time, listeners can try the member access level for free for 1 month using the code KAS member at checkout. To learn more and sign up, visit lightfromlantern.com/community or visit the link right in the description. Hope to see you there, Magical Maker.
Hey, Katie, you took my Intro to Palmistry course.
Sure did.
Why would you recommend it? Or would you?
Well, first of all, absolutely I would. Maybe I'm biased, but I don't think so. It, for me, was very empowering. It shined some light on how I tend to be personally self-critical, and you were really able to help me break that habit by looking at patterns as not things that are wrong, but just things that you can work with. The minuses became pluses, and I think that was something that really was very empowering.
I'm really glad you said that. This is one of my major ideas, is palmistry and tarot and other things reveal patterns, not predictions. And to be able to also look at your own hand and transform and reframe your perceived character defects or your self-critical analysis and look at that as a tool that's super useful and can be very positive for you, I think that's an amazing thing to do.
And having it apply to a practice that is traditionally fairly fatalistic, your approach of the Divine Hand method is so positive. I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in palmistry to any degree.
Totally.
And where can they go to find out more?
You, listener, can learn the Divine Hand Palmistry method at your own pace with my brand new palmistry course. Go to introtopalmistry.com to read more information about it and to sign up.
Hey Knit a Spell fans, we are back on Patreon with a new dedicated page. For just $5 a month, you'll gain access to behind-the-scenes posts, exclusive downloads and resources, and you'll be able to participate in influential polls with fellow fans. You'll also receive a free, exclusive Knit a Spell sticker sent right to your door after being a subscriber for 3 consecutive months. It's a great way to support the podcast, and Jim and I are so appreciative to everyone who's joined so far. To learn more and sign up, visit patreon.com/knit-a-spell. See you there. Welcome back. I'm excited to chat about some correspondences that we could tie together with garter stitch. But first, before we do that, I think it's important to remind folks, since it's been a while since we talked about what is grounding? Like, we're talking about getting grounded. Can you explain to people
Yeah.
what is that exactly in your mind?
The biggest correspondence that we came up with is, and why we named the episode Grounding with Garter, is this idea of grounding. We've talked about grounding and centering in previous episodes. Episode number, I don't remember, but we'll link it.
Yeah, it might have been like 24. Was it
Yeah,
24?
I don't know.
You know, one
But
of them.
anyway, have you noticed that we have a lot of episodes?
We have so many amazing episodes, and you can watch them all on YouTube.
Yay! So grounding. Grounding is the first thing that I teach my magical students.
Hey, so you
Just
teach
like,
grounding, we teach garter.
right.
Very
I
good.
mean, you might need to teach casting on first.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
you can do a knitted cast on, so it's very close.
So associated with grounding makes a lot of sense. So grounding is the act of getting deeply connected with a calming foundation. It is a way to connect with the unlimited supply of energy available from the universe. It's a way to remind us that we belong and that we're an essential part of human existence. When we are grounded, we are able to more easily stay calm in a crisis. We are able to access magical energy, and we're better able to withstand whatever might be happening to us or around us.
Mm.
What I recommend everyone do is ground before any magical or psychic work in order to start from a place of empowerment. It's not just magic that uses grounding either. If you're in theater, if you do improv or performance of any kind, often grounding is a technique that is taught to
Mm.
actors and performers before they begin. It's kind of a clear your mind, clear the decks, get centered, get connected with who you are, why you're here, your foundation, and then you can start performing from that place.
Mm.
It's a technique that's used in a sort of mundane way and also a super magical way. And of course, there are different ways to ground, and that's why I recommend you listen to our episode on grounding.
Yes, grounding, centering, all the good stuff in that episode.
So, Katie, I have a question. So we talked about the baby surprise. That sounds like an accidental pregnancy. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about the surprise baby jacket.
Mm-hmm.
What other types of projects are good for this stitch besides that? Can you make other things with just garter stitch?
Oh, yeah. Garter stitch, I think, is really good for almost any project.
What if you describe the project you'd make with the garter stitch, and then let's brainstorm some magical associations with that piece? How does that
Yes.
sound?
Perfect. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, you name one and then we'll brainstorm.
Okay. So, first off, scarves and shawls.
Why would you use garter stitch for a shawl or a scarf?
Because it does not roll. Curling is a number one, not concern, but a thing that is not preferred in most cases when you're doing stockinette stitch, which is the knit a row, purl a row. When you knit every row, it's evenly tensioned on the right and the wrong side, and that's why it doesn't curl and it lays nice and flat.
Does that mean you don't have to block it?
You don't have to block it, but I still recommend blocking even garter stitch because it helps relax all the stitches and even them out if there was any discrepancy. Because, we're
Wobbles,
human,
yep.
we don't make everything perfectly tensioned. That's what the blocking helps for. But
Mhm.
generally, it's in a much better state fresh off the needles than something that's like a lace pattern or stockinette stitch. So good point. Yes.
Got it. That's cool. So that means it's ready to go right off the needles. It doesn't roll or curl up. I noticed that garter is a little bit more, it seems thicker, like a little more
Yeah.
squishy, right?
Yes.
So what are some magical correspondence with a scarf? A scarf and a shawl is worn often around the shoulders, around your neck to keep your neck warm or shoulders warm.
Also for decoration, sometimes you're just using it for a little extra flair. It could be something squishy, but like lightweight or cotton or something like that. So not
Right.
necessarily for protection, but like, fashion, I suppose.
Yep. So I guess the magical correspondences that I could imagine are maybe comfort because of the shawls, blankety type.
Mm.
I think that could be with a lot of these.
Yep.
Maybe it's protecting your voice.
Oh, throat chakra.
Yeah, kind of that
Yeah.
communication, throat chakra, or enhancing if it's decorative.
Sure. Oh, there you
Um,
go.
yeah, what is something that you might think of in addition to that?
Yeah, I think empowerment in terms of like the throat chakra. So finding your voice or cushioning the blow of like hard news, perhaps.
I think about the like a shawl could also be something that protects your heart and
Mm,
that comfort of it wrapping around you. Um,
absolutely.
and since it's around your sort of heart chakra and your shoulders, it's sort of like protecting you kind of like a turtle shell.
Yeah, totally. Oh,
What's another thing? Since you can make a shawl, does
mm.
that mean you would make like a whole blanket?
There you go. It's like a supersized shawl, right?
Yeah, I
Speaking of
guess
turtle
so.
shell, that's really the one that I think about like protection and comfort. If you're sick, what do you want to do? You want to just lay on the couch or the bed under a blanket and just sort of like
Curl up under a
heal.
blanket. Yep.
Yeah, that's really when the turtling, the hermiting comes in.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe that blanket could be associated with the hermit card in the tarot, which you know the hermit card best. What do you associate the hermit card with?
Oh, I always think of it as removing yourself from distraction to look within to find wisdom or access outer wisdom, to be able to listen, to clear and make room.
Yeah, like a retreat.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and what do
Hmm.
you want on your retreat? Big old blanket.
Big old squishy, stretchy, wrap around you
Mm.
blanket.
Yep. And if you're knitting a blanket, it's probably going to take some time. And so having patience is a good one, not just for garter stitch, but generally for a blanket. And you're probably going to learn something by the end. If nothing else, it's a huge achievement just to do something that big and finish.
Yeah. You're going to learn how many skeins of yarn it takes.
You're going to learn how much willpower you have to finish and how long that takes you. Yeah, because maybe it just takes a month and maybe it takes 40 years. Or maybe it's like
Well,
my beekeeper's quilt and you never finish it. Just put
you
it in the
can't.
coffin
You're
with me.
allowed. Okay, what else can you make with garter stitch? I mean, earlier you talked about garter is named after the top of socks.
Right, yes.
You don't want to make the whole sock out of it, do you?
You sure could. There are certainly garter stitch patterns that are in fingering weight for like socks and things like that. I tend to avoid anything that has garter stitch, again, this one here, on the bottom of your foot. A lot of the times it'll just be like on the top part of the foot, so you're not stepping on it.
Mm.
However, slippers, and when I say slippers, I tend to be referencing patterns that are like thicker. So a worsted weight or a bulky weight yarn that you're using. So everything is just really squishy. My grandma used to knit these slippers that were just garter stitch. They were just like a square or a rectangle. And the way you folded it up and seamed it in made the little foot
It
very
was like an
easy.
adult surprise slipper.
Yes, a surprise slipper. Which again, not a thing you want to be a surprise. You don't want it slip by surprise, which
Right.
is why you should always treat the bottom of your socks with like those poofy paint or
Or hot glue.
hot glue. That was it. Yes.
Yeah. This is cool. So, of course, slippers, that's where we get into like the foundation, their connection with the earth.
Yep.
And of course, all of these have comfort, but I also think about that being maybe empowerment because you're connected to the earth. So there's this sense of like, I have my roots in the earth, or I'm rooted, or I'm
Mm.
deeply connected.
Yep. And you're
W-
more prepared to like go and do a thing because you're
Yeah.
comfortable and you can handle it.
Yeah. What else would you associate with wearing slippers?
I love slippers. I wear them all the time. I just feel like they're essential no matter what the season. At least for me, my phalanges and my extremities, they're always the first thing to get cold. And I
Hmm.
hate wearing shoes. And so slippers are really where it's at for me.
Sure.
So it is like a foundational clothing item for me.
Yeah. First thing when you get up, you just slip
Pop them
into your
right on.
slippers instead of putting on socks and shoes. Yep.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
comfort for me is like the number one. And if I feel comfort on my feet, then I can concentrate on the task at hand. Because if I have cold feet, I can't do anything. I won't be able to sleep. It must be remedied. What about you?
I'm wearing slippers now.
There you go. Ditto. Yes.
I podcast in slippers.
And plus, traditionally in history, it's a good thing to honor your feet. A lot of people think feet are gross, which I get, but they take us everywhere. So to really
Hmm.
treat your feet, I think is important. So
Yeah.
that's another good way of
Yeah.
remembering that.
That's really
Honor your
cool.
feet.
What are other things that garter stitch is handy for?
Because it is a curling deterrent, a lot of people will choose to do a project that has an edging in garter stitch to prevent curling. And so, like, the body of the piece will be in a different stitch pattern. For example,
Oh,
like my little blankie pattern, it has a garter stitch border, and then the inside is like a stockinette stitch dotted pattern.
sure. I think I've worn garments even from the store that have a different pattern on the edge of the sleeves. I think sometimes it's actually a ribbed pattern instead of garter, but it's this idea of like, oh yeah, I
Same
could
idea.
totally see that.
Yep. And it's good for hems and things. It just has a different character than a ribbing, which ribbing is going to like suck in and be really elastic, versus the garter stitch, which can itself be elastic, but generally it tends to actually have a larger stitch blueprint than like a stockinette
Sure.
stitch. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I guess the ribbing only stretches in one direction, which is probably handy for the ends of sweater sleeves.
that's right. Yes.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so if it's good for edges because it doesn't roll and it's kind of flat,
Yep.
I think about that as like literally keeping boundaries. If you're going to do an edge of garter stitch, that's going to be really like, this is my keeping boundaries scarf. Really good to wear when you're over at the in-laws or at family events.
Yes. Or to put around a blanket if you're feeling like, oh, this is just like my place. I need to hide and just be me, just for me. These are my borders of protection. I will be under this blanket. It's great. And you can do
Yeah,
that on a shawl. You can do that on sweater cuffs or hems, all sorts of options to give you those borders that you need.
yeah, that's awesome. I love
Mm-hmm.
this. Adding that to your other piece and adding that magical correspondence.
Yep.
Do you have another one?
My last one that I feel like garter stitch really shines at, and is one of my personal favorite ways to use it, is featuring stripes. So again, I'm looking at my little swatch here. This has one, two, three garter ridges in each stripe, and each ridge is 2 rows. So the math ends up working really easily. It's a great stitch pattern to learn how to start counting your rounds or your rows because they're really easy to see. And again, if you wanted to do like crazy stripe madness, you could do one color for every ridge and have this amazing rainbow effect. Do it all on different colors, do it all in tones of the same color, even just doing it all in one color, and you still will have all of these amazing textural ridges. But I think stripes is just, they're so fun. So
Yeah.
much fun in garter stitch.
And because garter stretches the same either direction, could you make that sweater have stripes going either up and down or across? Or is one better than the other?
Oh. So to knit the stripes going this way instead would
Going
end up
vertically?
being, yep, it would end up being like a color work situation. So you'd have to
Oh,
hold all these colors separately
up
and
and
then
down.
switch in
Yeah.
between them.
You can't
How,
just turn the fabric sideways.
unless it was something where you could just turn the fabric sideways.
Oh, that's what you said. I noticed on the
Spoiler,
surprise.
Jim.
Sorry. I noticed on the surprise jacket that the stripes went up and down on the body. And then
Yes.
at the bottom, they sort of went across. So it was kind of this L shape. And I thought that
Yeah.
was a really cool
It
effect.
got really clever shaping in there. So by using knit two togethers on certain points, that's how she was able to get that mitered square look there. So very little effort to manipulate to make it look very special.
It's
So,
brilliant. So
yep.
if I think about stripes, I always think about longevity, like eating long noodles at Chinese New Year is associated with longevity. So I think about that, but I also think about stripes being a pathway that we
Mm,
follow, and it's a way of opening the roads. If your stripes are going across instead, that could also be protective. We always stop at lines, so it's a little bit of a stop sign. So that
mm,
could also be a protective type of fabric that you're making, in my mind. But what would you,
definitely.
and of course, we'd want to add color magic and other things to it. and intention as you knit. But what would you associate stripes with?
It could be protection or borders because the color you're using, or maybe you only have one stripe around it. And that's what's like very visually striking is you just have like one garter stripe against your whole stockinette sweater or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I also think of stripes as being like flags. They're great ways to just communicate a message, even if it's just by color and you're not, putting like a whole picture in there or whatever. Stripes
Yep.
are still a picture. So I think that's something to be said too. You could really communicate an interesting color coded message within just the thicknesses of the line and how many you use and what colors you're using them in.
It's a great way to knit a flag of something. Like I think about the plethora of pride flags. If you
Right.
wanted trans pride, for instance, you could knit in those colors and do big blocks of stripes. What a cool garment that would be.
Lots and lots of options. I just feel like we're never going to get to all of them. So I'm interested what other people might have to say in terms of what kind of stitch correspondences, magical correspondences they would give the garter stitch.
Yeah, if only there was a way for our listeners to contribute to how could we do that? Oh,
Oh,
wait.
wait. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, drop us an email.
Oh, you mean at knitaspellpodcast@gmail.com? That's a good one.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking they could also drop us a comment on any of one of our YouTube videos, including this one, which is what you're watching right now.
Yeah, comment on the YouTube video.
That's right.
Of course, one of the best ways to also interact with actual Katie is...
Yes, by signing up for our Patreon for just $5 a month, which you can find out more at patreon.com/knitaspell. Get all sorts of behind the scenes photos, updates, giveaways, all sorts of fun stuff. You don't want to miss out. Join me, why don't you?
This was such a cool conversation.
I always figure out more correspondences as we talk than I
Yeah.
even could have considered initially. So I appreciate
Yeah.
your collaboration as always, Jim.
Who knew that garter stitch was so flexible? I learned so much about this lowly stitch that I have a few swatches of in my knitting bag and thought, but I'm now kind of re-inspired to go back and try stuff.
Ooh, the humble knit stitch is reeling you back in. Yes.
That's right. She'll get me every time. Well, I'm super excited about next week.
Ooh, yes. Spill the beans. What are we going to talk about?
Enchanted cables.
Yes.
So we're going to put some pearls in. Pearls of wisdom. Get it?
Oh, I see what you did there. Thanks for watching. And Jim, thanks for being here as always. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for
listening.
If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knit a Spell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knit a Spell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.